I remember the exact moment I thought I had finally made it. I was staring at my phone, looking at a savings balance of $5,000. For some, that's a rounding error, but for me, it was a mountain I had been climbing for 3 years. I felt a surge of pride. But then, something strange happened. Within 48 hours, I accidentally found 3 things I desperately needed to buy: a car repair that wasn't urgent, a tech upgrade I'd survived without for years, and a series of celebratory dinners. By Monday, the $5,000 was $3,000. I told myself it was just bad luck. I told myself the universe didn't want me to be wealthy. But the biological reality is far more uncomfortable. Your brain doesn't actually want you to be wealthy. It wants you to be safe. To your prehistoric amygdala, wealthy is an unknown risk, a bright neon sign that attracts predators and envy. But being broke? That is a familiar, predictable survival state. Your brain knows how to manage being broke. It has a roadmap for it. It has survived it every single day of your life. This is the psychological poverty loop. It's a neural glitch that treats your progress like a threat. We are going to spend the next 25 minutes dismantling the hardware that is keeping you stuck. Every year you stay in this loop, you aren't just losing money, you are losing the version of yourself that was meant to build something permanent. The cost of inaction isn't a lower bank balance, it's the slow, quiet death of your potential. To understand why you keep self-sabotaging, we have to look at the Stone Age brain that is currently running your 2026 digital life. For 99% of human history, surplus was a danger. If you had too much food, it would rot and attract scavengers. If you had too many resources, you became a target for rival tribes. Evolution did not select for the boldest accumulator, it selected for the most efficient survivor. This created a deep-seated neural bias, where enough is perceived as a safety zone, but extra triggers a silent alarm. When you hit a financial milestone, your brain doesn't see freedom, it sees exposure. It feels as though you are standing in an open field while a storm is brewing. The internal dialogue isn't, "I am successful." It is a frantic, whispered question. When is the other shoe going to drop? This is why you feel that physical itch to spend when you have a surplus. It is your brain's way of returning you to the safety of the baseline. In your daily life, this appears as a strange form of anxiety that bubbles up during your most successful weeks. You might find yourself picking fights, suddenly feeling a deep sense of boredom with the work that actually makes you money. You think you're just having a bad day, but biologically, your nervous system is trying to create a crisis to distract you from the danger of growth. Growth requires you to become a stranger to yourself, and your brain is terrified of strangers. We have been conditioned to believe that laziness or lack of discipline is the enemy, but discipline is useless when your own biology is actively rooting for your failure. Your brain is a master of predictive processing. It wants the world to match its internal map. If your internal map says, "I am a person who struggles," your brain will move mountains to make sure you keep struggling, just so it can be right. It prefers a familiar misery over an unknown happiness every single time. This brings us to the internal enemy, the survival circuit. This isn't a metaphor, it is a literal interplay between your amygdala, the fear center, and your prefrontal cortex, the logic center. Usually, we think the logic center is in charge. We tell ourselves, "I will save money this month." But the moment the bank balance crosses that invisible threshold, the amygdala hijacks the controls. It floods your system with cortisol, making you feel a low-level, persistent sense of dread. You think you are choosing to buy that expensive meal or that new gadget, but in reality, your neurons are performing a reset. By spending that money, you are lowering the stakes. You are returning to the state of needing to hustle, which is a state your brain understands perfectly. There is a perverse comfort in the struggle. When you're broke, your problems are simple. Find money. When you're wealthy, your problems become complex. Who am I? What do I do now? How do I protect this? Your brain hates complexity. Think about how this feels in your body, that tightness in your chest when you think about your long-term goals, that sudden brain fog that descends when you sit down to do the high-value work that could actually change your life. This isn't a lack of focus, it is a protective barrier. Your brain is consuming massive amounts of glucose and energy just to keep you in place. It is exhausting to stay the same, yet we do it because the alternative feels like a threat to our very existence. You might see this in your life as a series of unfortunate events. Every time you get ahead, the car breaks down. Every time you have a high income month, an unexpected bill arrives. While some of this is life being life, behavioral data suggests that we subconsciously invite these crises. We stop performing the maintenance. We become distracted and miss the warning signs. We are quite literally creating the chaos we need to feel normal again. You aren't being hunted by bad luck. You are being managed by a survival system that is working too well. To truly visualize this, I want you to imagine the Scarcity Governor. If you've ever rented a moving truck or a scooter, you know they often have a governor installed, a mechanical limit that prevents the vehicle from going over, say, 60 miles per hour. You can floor the gas pedal all you want, you can scream at the engine, but the moment the needle hits 60, the system cuts the fuel. The vehicle isn't broken. It is doing exactly what it was programmed to do: stay within the safe limits set by the owner. Your brain has a financial and psychological governor. This is your financial comfort zone. It's not a number you chose, it's a number your childhood and your past traumas chose for you. For some, the governor is set at 0. They are only comfortable when they are in debt. For others, it's set at 5,000 or 50,000, but the mechanism is the same. The moment you start to accumulate too much excess capital, the scarcity governor triggers neural friction. Neural friction feels like a physical weight. It's the procrastination that feels like paralysis. It's the urgent distraction that pulls you away from a project. It's the sudden, overwhelming desire to sleep when you should be working. This friction is the fuel being cut to your engine. Your brain is sensing that you are speeding toward a version of life it doesn't recognize. To stop the perceived danger, it makes the act of moving forward physically and mentally painful. Why does this happen? Because surplus creates decision fatigue. When you have no money, your decisions are made for you by necessity. You eat what you can afford, you go where you must. But when you have a surplus, you have choices. Choices require the prefrontal cortex to work overtime. Choices create the risk of making the wrong choice. To your survival-obsessed brain, the safest way to avoid the wrong choice is to remove the choice entirely by removing the surplus. Observe your own life. Is there a specific bank balance that, once reached, makes you feel safe enough to stop pushing? Maybe it's just enough to cover next month's rent. Maybe it's a small cushion. The moment you hit that number, do you notice your productivity drop? That number is your governor's limit. It is the invisible ceiling of your prison cell. And until you realize that the safety of that cell is actually a cage, you will never have the fuel you need to break out into the open road. The governor isn't there to hurt you. It's there because it thinks you can't handle the speed. It thinks if you go 80 or 100, you'll crash. It's a relic of a time when more meant target. But in 2026, more means leverage. It means the ability to buy back your time, to secure your health, and to protect your family. We have to learn how to recalibrate the governor, not by fighting the friction, but by convincing the system that speed is the new safety. Let's look at the shadow study of human behavior. There is a famous psychological concept known as cognitive bandwidth, famously studied by Eldar Shafir and Sendhil Mullainathan. They looked at how scarcity, whether it's a lack of money, time, or even social connection, changes the literal wiring of the human brain. They found that when a person is in a state of scarcity, their functional IQ actually drops by 13 points. This is the tragedy of the poverty loop. The very state of being broke makes you less capable of making the decisions required to get unbroke. The survival circuit takes up so much mental processing power that there was nothing left for long-term planning. In the study, they observed farmers in India. Before the harvest, when money was tight, these farmers performed significantly worse on cognitive tests. After the harvest, when they had a surplus, their IQ scores shot back up. They weren't smarter after the harvest, they were just less taxed. When you are in the poverty loop, your brain is like a computer running a massive hidden program in the background that is eating up all the RAM. That program is called survival. It is constantly calculating how to pay the next bill, how to stretch the last $20, how to hide the struggle from friends. This shadow career of managing scarcity is what is actually killing your dreams. It's not that you aren't working hard enough, it's that you are working two jobs, and one of them, the mental management of poverty, is unpaid and invisible. I want you to visualize this the next time you feel lazy. You aren't lazy, you are cognitively overwhelmed. Your brain is trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. This creates a feedback loop. Scarcity leads to poor decisions lead to more scarcity, and the survival circuit becomes more deeply entrenched. It becomes your identity. You start to describe yourself as a person who always struggles or someone who never gets a break. But there is a second part to this study. They found that even when the scarcity was removed, the habit of scarcity remained. People who had lived in the poverty loop for years would still make short-term survival choices even when they had a surplus. Their brains had been trained to expect a crisis. They were like soldiers who return home from a war and still jump at the sound of a car backfiring. Their environment had changed, but their nervous system was still in the trenches. This is why lottery winners go broke. This is why people who get a massive raise often find themselves in more debt 6 months later. If you don't address the survival circuit, no amount of money will save you. You will simply find more expensive ways to be stressed. You will build a bigger shadow career to manage your bigger surplus. To break the loop, we have to stop looking at the bank account and start looking at the neural friction that makes us fear the very thing we say we want. Now, we have to address the hard truth. And this is the part where most people will click away. The biological reality is that 99% of the people watching this video will feel a temporary spark of insight, and by tomorrow morning, they will have returned to their default settings. Your ego prefers the problem over the solution. Why? Because the problem gives you a story. The story of the struggler is a powerful one. It earns you sympathy. It gives you a built-in excuse for why you haven't reached your goals. It protects you from the terrifying possibility that if you did have all the resources you needed and you still failed, it would be your fault. As long as you are stuck in the poverty loop, you can tell yourself, I could be great, if only I wasn't so broke. The loop is your ultimate shield against the pain of true accountability. This is the ego trap. Your identity is currently wrapped up in the resistance. You have spent so many years fighting the scarcity governor that you don't know who you are without the fight. If I took away all your financial stress tomorrow, you would feel a profound sense of emptiness. You would have to face the vast, open space of your own potential, and that is the most frightening thing a human being can encounter. Most people would rather stay in a familiar hell than enter an unfamiliar heaven. I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. Do you actually want to be wealthy, or do you just want to be wealthy? There is a comfort in the yearning. There is a romanticism in the hustle. But wealth is often quiet, boring, and requires a high level of emotional regulation. It requires you to be okay with having too much. It requires you to sit with the anxiety of a surplus and not fix it by spending. If you find yourself getting angry at what I'm saying, that is your ego's defense mechanism. It is the survival circuit, trying to protect the struggler identity. It knows that if you accept this truth, the game is over. You can no longer blame your parents, the economy, or your bad luck. You have to admit that you have been the one holding the scarcity magnet all along. You have been the one pulling yourself back into the loop because the open air of freedom felt too thin to breathe. The goal of this realization isn't to make you feel guilty. Guilt is just another form of neural friction that keeps you stuck. The goal is to make you realize that you are not broken. You are simply programmed. And a program that can be understood can be edited. Now that you can name the ghost in your machine, now that you can see the scarcity governor for what it is, it no longer has the same power over you. The survival circuit thrives in the dark. It relies on you believing that your self-sabotage is a character flaw. But the moment you label it as a biological safety protocol, you can step outside of it. You can observe the anxiety without becoming the anxiety. You can feel the itch to spend and say, there is my amygdala trying to protect me from the surplus. Thank you, but I am safe. This is the transition from victim to architect. You are no longer the passenger in a car with a locked governor. You are the mechanic. You are learning that safety can be redefined. We can teach your nervous system that a high bank balance isn't a predator, it's a fortress. We can teach your brain that growth isn't exposure, it's expansion. This doesn't happen with a sudden explosion of willpower. It happens through a slow, quiet series of neurohacks that rewire your baseline over time. To break the poverty loop, we need a blueprint that targets the system at 3 levels. We aren't going to rely on motivation. We are going to rely on architecture. Step 1, the environmental hack, automation. Your brain can't sabotage what it doesn't see. You must automate your surplus. Set up a system where a percentage of every dollar that enters your life is immediately moved to an account that is difficult to access. This isn't just about saving. It's about lowering the visual surplus that triggers the scarcity governor. If your spending account always looks low, your amygdala stays calm. You are essentially tricking your brain into thinking you are still in the survival zone, while your wealth grows in the shadows. Step 2, the biological hack, nervous system regulation. When you receive a bonus or hit a goal, your body will enter a state of high arousal. You might feel jittery or hyperactive. This is the danger zone. Before you make a single financial decision, you must practice down regulation. Use physiological size or cold exposure to tell your amygdala that you are safe. You must couple the feeling of having money with the feeling of a calm nervous system. Step 3, the mental hack, identity shifting. Stop calling yourself a struggler. Start using the language of an accumulator. This isn't fake it until you make it. It is a literal relabeling of your neural maps. When the scarcity governor tries to pull you back, ask yourself the checkmate question. What is the exact dollar amount in your bank account that makes you start feeling comfortable enough to stop pushing? Is it 1,000, 10,000? Whatever that number is, that is the wall of your prison. Your mission for the next 90 days is to cross that number and stay there. Not by spending, but by sitting with the discomfort of the surplus until your brain accepts it as the new normal. The golden rule of the poverty loop is this: your bank account will never permanently exceed your internal sense of safety. You can work 80 hours a week. You can learn every investment strategy in the world. But if your survival circuit still views wealth as a threat, you will eventually find a way to burn it all down. Your legacy isn't built in the moments of struggle. It is built in the moments of surplus. It is what you do when you don't have to do anything that defines your future. Breaking this loop is the most difficult thing you will ever do because you aren't fighting a boss or a system. You are fighting the very part of you that kept you alive during your darkest years. You have to be willing to let the survivor die so that the builder can be born. But as you step out of the loop, remember that there is another, even more subtle force at work in your mind. A force that doesn't steal your money, but steals something much more valuable: your time. In our next deep dive, we will explore the silent thief, the hidden neural mechanism that is currently deleting 10 years of your life without you even noticing. But for today, just stay in the surplus. Just breathe. You are safe.